First thing I like to do is pull the staples out of the boxes. I've been cut so many times by these things. They scratch the bike when you're pulling them out. If you just have a pair of side cutters or pliers, it's really easy just to remove those 5 staples first. Break the glue. And look at that. There it is. Okay, we'll get all this packaging off. Just make sure we've got both the end caps for the hubs are on here. We don't throw anything away. So you get all the packaging off and then remove all the bits of residue tape and give the bike an inspection. Just make sure everything looks good upon arrival. So we will take the faceplate off the stem with it's a 6mm. Just pay attention to the orientation of the brake line. Make sure we're not getting it all twisted up. So you just want to see where it's going to sit nice and natural. And we'll start just by snugging these up just to hold it in place, and then we can center the bar after. Okay, getting these snugged up and so that they're equal distance away from the stem on the top and bottom. We've got it just snug now. So we can center the bar, and using the markings laser etched into the bar, we can center the brood symbol right in the middle there and find our marks. And good. And then we'll snug these up to 5 newtons. Alternating. Next, we're going to align the bar with the fork. So just back off the stem bolts. Using a 4mm, just make sure that this top cap assembly is snug. And then looking down the bar to the fork, without the wheel on, it's a little easier. And we can align. Good, okay. And then starting with the lower bolt, just bring that up snug, snug up the top bolt, and then set those to 5 newtons as well, alternating. Now if you put too much tension, or if you tighten the top 4mm top cap too tight, you'll make the steering quite stiff. So you want it to be snug so that nothing's loose, but these bolts on the back of the stem are what lock the steering. This is just a preload for the bearings in the headset. So light, 1.5, 2 Newton meters on the top bolt, and then 5 newtons on the stem bolts. Okay, that's set. Next we'll put the front wheel in. We've got our nice quick release here on the fork. Just take the end cap off the axle. There's availability to put a front brake on this bike. The disc tabs surface here goes on the non-drive side, same side as the brake rotor on the rear wheel. So get that into place. And snug up the cap until the quick release becomes tight when it's running in line with the hub, and then we can position it and lock that front wheel on. Don't forget about your small parts box. Inside there you'll find your pedals, reflector kit, your wristbands, and your owner's manual. Pedals, they've got a 6mm Allen wrench tooling on the inside, or you can use a 15mm box or open end wrench on the outside. A little bit of grease on the threads, and they're left and right specific. Left hand side, left hand threads, meaning counterclockwise, and right hand side, right hand threads, clockwise. You should be able to read the writing of the pedals from the cockpit of the bike. Next, what I'd like to do is just an overall bolt check. The bike comes quite complete, as you can see. We can do a little adjustment on the rear brake. We'll check all the bolts across here on the crank and the rear assembly, and then pump the tires, and this bike's ready to go. The crank bolts here, 4 millimeter Allen wrench. We're just gonna make sure that those are snugged up, 12 to 14 newtons. Again, this is similar to the headset assembly where the end cap sets the bearing tension, but the pinch bolts on the crank are actually what lock it together. So those are the ones we want to make sure are snugged up. The pinch bolt, like I said, 12 to 14 newtons. The top cap assembly for the bottom bracket, 1.5 to 2 newtons. We're just going to check the hardware back here as well. These are all set from factory. We're just going to make sure that everything's nice and snug. And as well for the rear axle. Just make sure that these axle nuts are tight. Last but not least, I believe it's a 6 mil on these seats. We can set this seat angle up after, there we go. Make sure that's snugged up as well. Okay. 5 mil Allen wrench to adjust your rear brake. And make sure these are, it's running well. Schrader valves on the tubes, just like on your car. We'll pump these up to minimum 20 psi. You can run them up to 35. So we're just going to talk a bit about the fork here. We've got our air spring on this side, our damper on this side. We can set the air spring up for the weight of our child. Minimum pressure is 40 psi. That's about the lowest that you're going to go on the fork. Otherwise, it's about a pound of air per pound of child. So on the drive side, we've got the lockout for the compression, so we can crank that down and lock the fork out essentially for road riding. Keep that open or counterclockwise for the fork to work. And otherwise, we've got our rebound on the bottom. And so again, if we're at the minimum 40 psi, we'd want to back this dial off counterclockwise all the way to open the rebound damping, so the fork will be nice and active for your child. Take the air cap off, and we'll check the air pressure with a high pressure shock pump. So this is sitting at about 90 psi, and we'll just set this up right now. So that would be good for a 90-pound child. But I'm going to let the air out down to 40 psi and set this up for the smallest rider. 40 psi in there. Reinstall the dust cap. And unwind the rebound until we hit the bump stop. Okay. Last but not least, we'll drop the bike down and lower the seat and we're ready to go. A bit of grease in the frame. Seat down. The kids like these nice and slammed. And again, tighten to 5 newtons. There you have it. Great. So the 20-inch Kotori for this year. Some highlights. Your contact points. We've got the Brood tender riders, ultra low durometer grips, super soft on the hands, really comfy for the kids, and lots of grip, especially in sweaty palms, as well as their direct mount saddle that we have fore and aft adjust, as well as the angle, which is really nice for a comfort fit. The fork, this fork, like I said, air sprung, oil cartridge damping. It's got lockout, rebound control, and a fully adjustable spring. Carbon fiber lowers, really keeps the front end light, which is great for dirt jumping. We move our way back to the drive line. We've got the Brood direct mount crank with the splined direct mount chainring. This is a 2-piece crank system, super stiff, and it uses industry recognized spline for the chainring. As well, we've got our horizontal sliding dropouts. They're tapered, so once locked in place, they're not going to pull ahead. And these are replaceable dropouts, so we can get into derailleur and gears if we wanted to go that route with this bike, make it a bit more of a trail ready bike. And of course, hydraulic disc brake. Lots of power, adjustable brake lever so we can set our reach, and it's just a nice stress-free simple brake for the kids to be able to use. And there you have it, high grade dirt jumper for your little ripper.